Peace, what's going on? Welcome to Luminous Velocity Productions. Today's tutorial is going to be how do you get Maschine into Logic. Now, a lot of people have this problem of bringing stuff into Maschine or getting your audio from Maschine into Logic. Right now, we're loading Maschine, so if you just wait with us a little patiently while it's going through this whole process, it'll be fantastic. Add auto map, or you have any controller that also needs additional stuff and has a scan through, just be prepared because it will take you a lot longer. Now, this process should be capable for anybody running Maschine 1.5. Since 1.5, you've been able to use Maschine as a VST separately and together with everything else, or it's also been able to integrate with Logic, Pro Tools via RTAS, Cubase and Nuendo via VST. Ableton Live, fantastic, very simple with Live. Studio One also as a VST or audio unit if you're on a Macintosh. Today we're doing this on a Macintosh, but this applies completely for both Mac and PC. So now I'm inside of Maschine. What you're going to do first is find your Maschine project. Basically I have a profile already set up, so we're just going to File. We're going to open a recent file. This one's called Rocked and Loaded, something I've been working on for a little while. Using Native Instruments Complete 7 or Complete 8, then you shouldn't really have too much of a problem. Fantastic package, everything integrates with Maschine. If you have separate sound samples, you want to make sure to use the file Save As with your audio samples to make sure everything stays together. Up here I'm looking at the BPM, which is 132. Now if you look at each one of my groups, I have a different set of keys. Some things are using Reactor with Razor, other ones are Massive, Contact, and Silent. Some of these other ones are the kits that already are being used for everything, and then that's everything else. So right now we're going to pause right here, and then we're going to go into Logic knowing that everything is 132. Alright, so welcome back. Hopefully now we're going to start Logic Pro. If you're inside of Nuendo or Cubase or whatever else you're using, just remember that this is a tutorial about how to get Maschine into Logic. So right now we're going into Logic, we're letting it load all of the massive amounts of plugins that are already installed, and that could take a little while, but we let it keep going. Goes through once, boom. Unfortunately it has to load a final project that was opened first, so sometimes you might want to take that off just in case if you want to work on something fresh and new and get it done fast and quickly. Command Option W, if you know it, bring it up real quick. It'll shut down anything that you're doing you don't want to save. Command N, we're going to make a new file, starting with an empty project. We're going to create one software instrument, multi-timbral, output 1 and 2, that's perfectly fine. And we're going to close the library and the media. You're going to go down now to Audio Unit Instruments. You're going to go to Native Instruments Maschine. Now you have options here: mono if you want it to just be one channel, stereo if you want 2 channels, 5.1 if you're doing any 5.1 mixing specifically from your composition. Your multi-outputs are what we're going to be focusing on here. 5.1 might be done in another tutorial, but we're going to be using 16 times stereo. Now once you have the 16 times stereo loaded, and it takes a little bit, Maschine takes a little while to run up, you're going to go back into Maschine and pull in the project that you were working on last time. So in this case we're going to go in recent files, rocked and loaded. I'm going to allow that to load up. Take a little while with our spinning beach ball of doom. Circling, 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 hypnotizing you. But basically, once everything is loaded, you'll see it start going through, locking down all of your groups, all of your keys, all of your patterns, and all of your sequences. This will work even if you don't have a full song laid out, like we have a song laid out here from beginning to end. If you have just a 1-bar sequence or a 1-scene sequence, it'll work fine too, so don't feel bad. This also works for any genre of music. Another key thing that we spoke about was the tempo, so make sure and turn your tempo to what it should be. The tempo in this case is 132. Now once you hit play, your sequence will start running. so that's fine. We're going to rename our instrument machine, and we're going to create a bunch of audio tracks. So Command Option N. We want these to be stereo as they're coming out of machine stereo. We're going to create, say, 24 audio tracks just to be on the safe side. We're going to save just to make sure we have everything together. In this case, we're just doing this real quick, so I'm just going to place it on the desktop for right now inside my test project. I have a folder already set up, machine toot, rocked, and loaded. I'm going to call this machine toot and save. Of course, then I get this out of memory already. Now, this has to do with the fact I'm recording and doing a bunch of other things. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to go in and start turning off a lot of my virtual instruments inside to be able to get some memory back. So turning all this stuff off. If I've got any effects or group stuff that's going on, see I have nothing on the master, nothing on the groups, nothing there, on the group, nothing there, nothing on the master. These are all sounds, so I need all those sounds to stay as they are. And then here I have reactor and silent. So as we're starting, we'll have 1 and 2. I could turn off this silent right now by coming here and just turning off the silent. Do the same thing with the reactor. Now each one drops the memory considerably. So ideally, when I go to save, shouldn't be doing that to me, but just in case, we're going to try and run this and make it work. Now this is a pretty heavy project. I don't know how heavy your projects are, but bear with it. Now the first ones that we're doing is going to be an analog, or analogu as I called it, and a Mark 1 suitcase. So I'm going to be calling this analog, or analog bass, and Mark 1 suit. Okay, once we have those set, we're going to be looking to pull up our mixer. Once we get the mixer up, we're going to see exactly what's going on from there. So window mixer, it should be Command 2. Give it a little bit, now mixer will pop up. Hopefully it hasn't hit itself. Be aware of when working on multiple screens, sometimes your mixer will go hide on other screens. For the sake of this tutorial, we're not so concerned with the other screen for right now, so I can move machine away, but I'll keep an eye on my mixer here. Now inside of the mixer, when you're using any of the multiple outputs, you're going to get a little checkbox. This little checkbox is where you get all of your virtual outputs from machine. You're going to click plus, 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 and go all the way down to 16. This song has roughly about anywhere between, I'd say, 20 to 23 tracks already laid out. So this is what it's going to correspond to. Your machine 1 and 2 are always going to be 1 and 2. Those are your master outs, 1 and 2. Auxiliary 1 corresponds to 3 to 4, 2, 5 to 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, auxiliary 4, 9, 10, and so on and so forth, all the way down until you get down to machine 29 and 30, which, including the first two, gives you 32, which if you're doing it mono, you can basically get up to 32 outs. Now, however, once we have this, what we're going to start doing is going back into machine, and we're going to start creating where our outputs need to go. So for right now, we know that this reactor is off, but we're only going to run a couple of instruments. So if we look at the analog 1, we're going to change this to, well, let's just keep them in order. I'm going to say this is 2, Same thing, output, this is 3. You can also do it using the machine interface itself by just going in, clicking on the output instead of going on your module. Click on your sound, go to your output, and then this is going to be 4. This is going to be 5. Now if you have anything with specific effects that you want to run, you're going to leave these to run through the master out, especially when you have weird wonky tempos or sequences that don't necessarily start on the one, but you want to record it out so you get them nice and even inside of your DAW. So we know those are 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1. We've come from that now, so the last one we left off was output 5. We're going to come into our drums now, and we're looking at what drums are being used. So you can go to one of your main sequences, come down here, sound again, output. This is going to be 6, snare is 7, close hat is 8, these open hats are 9, and there's one little sound down here that's running around on one of these sequences, which I believe is this one, which is going to be 13, and that's going to be 10. Next sequence, same thing. We got channels 1 and 2, so we're going to look at, we're not using the kick at all. Kind of already decided that from this composition, so click back on sound, not your master. Go to your output. I'm going to go down to 11. This one's going to be 12. The open hat doesn't appear to be used, but you can switch to 1 just to be on the safe side. Looks like there's something in there, I'm just bugging. So this is going to be 13. There's no additional usage of the kick, out of sequence. So coming down, we got this clap, which would be 14. The shaker, which is going to be 15. And then that's that for that one. On the next one you have a choir and some other things, but these are pretty heavy, so I'm not even going to touch these just as yet until we actually get some memory back. But what should happen, or what will happen, is when you go to start your sequence, you'll be able to see everything is now broken down completely. So you can define exactly what's what. Now we see that works, that's perfectly fine. Now the next part of our adventure begins, which is naming everything. So coming from the top, we got to come back up here. We're going to look to see if we can add our reactive silence back in, even though it won't show up until way later in the song. It doesn't show up until 4 or 5, somewhere around 7. But we'll come back here for right now, because you usually want to get them in order. You're going to run it through one pass, try to get as many things as you can in one pass. So the first one, we're going to start naming our audio tracks according to whatever they're supposed to be in Maschine. I'll minimize the mixer for a little bit. This I know is actually 2 and 3. Just going to pull those down. So the first one is Black Olive Synth. And silent, I believe, is a high ARP. So, high ARP. So that's our first 4. Come down to our drums. I mean, you can do this, you can always choose to do this later. I just prefer to know exactly what everything is, personally, before I get to anything. So, next one I know is going to be on audio 5. This is the Porter kick, P kick. P snare, P hi-hat, key open hat. And then the last one would be 13, which is supposed to be a side stick. So P side stick. Next is going to be our other group for drums, which is going to be snare, closed hat, C hat, open hat, and I remember MC hat. That's pretty funny. I got that one a second ago. Clap, and pull up, and M shaker, M shaker. Last group, Ripper by Massive. That's Ripper 1. I have 2 of them. That's Ripper 2. Okay, choir. And then this is something that I pulled from. So I'm just going to copy the name and paste it because I don't even remember what I was naming this thing. Reactor break. Okay, now that we have those, what I'm going to do in essence is come back to our mixer again. Move this off screen. That's enough. Now each one of these is going to correspond to an actual input bus. Now what you're going to do is actually make sure that the output is not going to stereo 1, but going to bus 1 for each aux, bus 2, bus 3, 4, and so on and so forth all the way down the line. The reason for this being, what you want to do is actually use these as the input for your audio tracks. So it's going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. It's a little bit more time consuming than the drag and drop method, but you are so much more precise with this method. You don't have to worry about cutting off the tails at the ends unless you're using it for editing purposes. The rest of it works perfectly safe. Provided you don't run out of memory or your machine doesn't blow up, but that's another story. So 12, 13, and this is 14. Now each one of those is a 14 stereo pair, and our friend here, which is also number 15, 15 stereo pairs. Now, each one of these is turned to bus 15, but what I really want to have happen is I want to go, number 1 is going to start at bus 1, 2 is bus 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it's very important that you actually, I'm completely messing up here. Your output should still actually be your stereo outputs. Because it's not about your output being the output, but your input being the input. So if you want to change your inputs into the buses, so input is coming from bus 1, next input is coming not from the standard analog or digital ends, but from your buses, so bus 3, bus 4, 5, 6, 7. Now in this case, we got a little bit of a flub up, so you have to change your input and your outputs. But if your last input bus was 7, then you know this next one is going to be 8. Just keep looking at your buses. Bus 9, bus 10, bus 11, 12, 13, 14, and the final bus being bus 15. Now we haven't gotten to some of the massive stuff down here, so we'll actually take care of those when we're ready. Make sure to keep everything to the stereo out. Or you can even turn them off if you don't want, but sometimes it's good to be able to monitor exactly what's going on and make sure that your names are correctly named so that you don't end up in any problems. Okay. Now, what should happen is you're going to actually have to arm each one of your tracks. So once you hit record, hold on your shift button, or actually your option button. On option,
You can hold right next to IO and then drag across and turn them all on at one time.
yeah, I mean that's two. But I don't know exactly all of the ones that I need to pick. But remember also, I gotta pause that and do that again. So stop. Pretty much lined up with our buses and everything else set. You're gonna hold down Command, click Record, go over the top of each of the ones that you want to arm. And this is going to allow you to be able to hear exactly what's going on with the individual tracks that are coming in. Now, our main issue is all of these are actually mono tracks. So what you're going to want to do is click on them and make sure they are stereo tracks. So a lot of these are going to be coming in stereo. You can always make them mono if you want to later. So as they're coming out of input pairs, you don't want to record them mono and then have them turn into stereo later. Once again, from the top, hold down Option, click on the individual records that you want, or turn those off. Grab every one that you want to record, which is stopping before the Massive Ripper. Hold down Option and hit Record to arm all of them, along with Shift. So Shift, select all of these guys, hold down Record, press 1, get all of them. Now, what you want to do is hit play and see where your levels are. Now we can see that bass is really, really loud. So I'm going to take a couple things down. I'm going to look at the bass on 1. And we're going to look at the actual sound, which we're not really so concerned about massive. We want to look at the output. It's at like 3 dB plus 3. Down on that guy, because we're trying not to overload the system as well. So now that one is fine. Look back at our mixer again, play. It's just as important as anything else is making sure. Might be down a little too low. Okay. Now we're also looking at the kick on, which is the second one from the B group. So going to B. See that guy's coming in Pretty tough. -5 by itself. So I'm kicking on him. I'll bring him down as well a little bit. I play again, see how he looks around. Now, we also notice that we're over redlining, so we could pull it down by about -6 just to make sure. Now, it might seem like you're going to get a really low level, but all this is running virtually, so you don't have to worry about what your main output is doing because you're not exporting from that. You're just recording inside of the software. So the same issue we're also having with this clap. We're also going to be looking for that clap, which I believe is 13 down here. It's just a side stick. He's good. Go to the next group. Turn him down. Now, if you don't see the mouse moving that's me just using a controller. So, let's look at our level. Once you would basically just make sure you're not clipping going in unless that's what you want. But usually when dealing with digital gear, we know the clipping is not what we want ideally. Once we have all of that set up, the last thing you're going to do is just go ahead, kind of space it out because it's kind of hard because Maschine doesn't have any timing counter, so you don't know how long your actual sequence is going to be, and hit record. Very key, keep an eye on your CPU and your hard drive usage. As we're doing this on a laptop, we only have but so much CPU to pull off, so everything is still flowing as it's supposed to, but another very important thing is to keep an eye on your machine scene, because machine will loop over again and over again. So you have to keep an eye on it to make sure like exactly where you're going. If you have it mapped out at your tempo, good for you. You're fine and you're good to go. Just set a left and right locator, start, place a post roll, and let the record come off, and then you're done. Now, for the sake of the tutorial, we're looking at going through all of this in real time. It's a pretty complicated sequence. Now, traditionally more of this stuff would start appearing down here. However, being that they're all muted just so we have memory, we're not going to hear them just yet. Sometimes, depending on the complexity of your song, you're going to be able to get everything in one pass, and if it's not in one pass, you have to do it in 1 or 2 passes or 2 to 3 passes, but you'll end up with a full 16 tracks of audio each time, or about 14 if you want to leave something on the master as well. Then you get a full 16. Otherwise, you just go through, let it pass. You have to be patient with this because this is not going to be just a drag and drop and I can cut and clip. This make sure that everything is accurate. So from beginning to the end of the song, you'll be able to actually determine how far your song needs to go, what you need to do, and how you get everything done. Now, for my sake, I just made it a little bit longer, so please bear with it. I enjoyed it a little bit. Now, keeping an eye on your scenes, you can see that you're rounding out to the end. Coming back to a couple of different pattern changes. And then the final transition at the end of the song. So if you want fade out space, leave one empty scene so you have time to fade out without it grabbing everything. Of course, that doesn't always work that simple. So then that's the end of our song. Now, once we've completed that set, what we're going to do is take Maschine out of the way and come back, look at our audio. You can see that nothing looks clipped. Everything looks good so far. You have nice even waveforms. Anybody that needs to be gained up can be gained up a little bit. Bass might need a little bit of EQ and some compression, side chaining. But outside of that, you have your basic track pretty much laid out. If you want to do fades or you decide that it ended too abruptly, you can always go back in. If you want to shorten it for radio length or extend it for an electronic mix, you can do all that stuff now. But once we've recorded the first set, we can turn off all of these records. We only need just one, and then we're going to record the last 4 set, do one more pass, and then that's how you have it. That's how you get all your stuff into Maschine, into Logic from Maschine. Take all of these off, you go back into your mixer again. Now what you're going to do is look at each one of these. Once you've recorded them, you can take the buses off. So set your buses to no input for these particular channels. All the way down the line. You can do it fast, you can do it slow. It's all about how much time and persistence you want to put into it. But right there we were able to track all of our drums minus that one kick which I left out. And we're going to be coming back here to change the input buses now for the last 4 instruments to 1. Make sure your stereo out, so once again to your stereo out. So +1, +2, +3, and +4. Now, the only time you want to change this is if you have instruments that are running through some kind of side-chained effect, which you can do by adding in a group or an effect. In that case, usually you'll have to do them one at a time to make sure you keep the effects on, unless the effects are already inside of the signal chain. But if they're going out and you have them busting into different effects that come directly out of the master out, you have to run them out the master out one at a time. So going back to Maschine again, we're going to make sure everybody else is off. So our massive here, off. Reactor, off. Contact, off. Silent is already off. but we might end up needing to come back because we haven't heard silence, so now we probably need to turn him on, which that's on 4, or output 5, so we're going to leave output 5 alone. Come back to bus 5, which they probably don't show up until around there. Which we didn't hear that last time, just to conserve memory. So, come all the way back. Something I don't like usually, but let's go from the end all the way back to the front. So now silent is on. If we missed it on the last pass, it'll just come in as another clip. Make sure he's armed. That's still on bus 5. Take a look, see if we're seeing anything. Okay, so we know we have the right one. Very important, make sure you have the right thing set up on your buses, otherwise you will end up with something that just doesn't sound like what you're expecting. So you can leave that one there, and then the last are going to be these others. So you gotta just take everybody else, make sure put them back to your group, or you could just shut them off completely. It's just a little bit better sometimes to make sure you bring everybody back to group that needs to be back on group, so you don't end up with overlapping sounds. 8. Back out the group. And the rest of this is just being very, very, very cautious, just to make sure, like I said, we don't have anything overlapping. So take all of your outputs, send them back to your group, and also do it right here with your control. Keep going down, group, select next, down to group. It's already on group. Clap. Back down, and pull this guy up just to make sure. Shaker. Back to group. Now, these guys. We'll be looking at 2, 3. We got massive with guitar rig and some real craziness going on in here. So I'm going to be using bus 1 through 4. Let's check everything. Show pretty good because the stuff shows up later. Alright, thanks for watching our tutorial on how to get Maschine into Logic. This is Asakaya Bailey for Luminous Velocity with my business partner behind me, Edward Jackson.
Yeah.
We hope that this was educational for you and that you are able to get some more out of it. So no matter what your musical style, musical taste, if you're using Maschine and you're using Logic, there's a couple of techniques that you'll be able to use, and we hope that you have a great time creating. Have a great evening. Take care.